What we're talking about, Olympic sports, 25 years since the Sydney Olympics. Mate, that was some good days, that 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, you were there for Cathy's run. So, I mean, it's one of the ones where someone mentions it and the hairs on your neck stand up, like
Yeah.
the Socceroos qualifying, or the day we heard we got the Olympics.
I'm Ian Hawkins, and this is Sport is Life. The purpose of sport, as I see it, is to see your vision become a reality. Find your voice, create strong connections, and learn to trust your body. The week that was. Before we get started on that, it's the thing that blew me away was that your standing, obviously, in the community, because the 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 little highlights I did of our weekend review last week that went
Yeah.
out there, my lovely assistant Josephine did. Sound like I've off Sale of the Century there for a minute.
Yeah.
It's got the best traction of any highlight I've sent out.
Oh,
Even had our old mate Litters chime in and said,
oh, okay.
well done, boys. Well, you need a North American correspondent, so maybe in the future.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's
yeah,
good to know.
obviously, yeah, you're pulling in the audiences, mate. I think it drew a few people out of the cobwebs. Ange, um, what's, oh man, hope she doesn't listen to this. Surname escapes me. She's in Iceland or something. Like she called us a dynamic duo, and I replied to that well, we're a
Oh, okay.
duo anyway. Well, Ange Wade.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Um, yeah, so well done, mate. You've brought in new audiences, so
That's great to know. Good for my ego, anyway.
exactly. I've made and an absolute smashing to mine. I'm like, you mean that's all I need to do? Just bring in some outside people. It's funny when I
Yeah.
do social media and I just add Kate to a post about my coaching. It always does 10 times the audience. So obviously not there for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll start with the NRL finals. We were talking about the AFL, and neither of us had seen much of it over the weekend, so we thought we'd steer clear.
Mm.
But the Panthers, we mentioned it last week. But like, can they be stopped?
Um, I don't know. Who do you think out of the teams left could stop them?
I think only the Broncos. I think
Yeah.
that's that side. The winner comes from that side. I reckon. The Broncos can be inconsistent, but when they're good, they're unbelievable. And if Ezra Mam and Adam Reynolds are back, then could score a lot of points. Be interesting. The thing is that the
Yeah.
Panthers, when they get ahead, are hard to run down, but they haven't really fallen behind a heap in the last couple of months. So yeah, be interesting.
Yeah, they look
Dogs were
like.
unlucky.
Yeah, I think that the game kind of. I feel like with the dogs, the game hinges on certain things, and then they get themselves on the back. If it doesn't roll for them, they get themselves on the back foot, and that. Well, I asked whether it could have been a penalty try, but I think that was a bit too much. But definitely a sin binning, I think.
Oh, 100%.
But
I thought they were dudded there, and that's like right at the start of the game.
yeah,
And I reckon that should have been a sin bin. And if they, because they would have scored that, I reckon, like that next ruck, if
yeah,
he didn't regather and score himself, then that next ruck they would have scored for sure. Why, I don't understand why it wasn't a sin bin. Just because the push was subtle, he knew exactly what he was doing.
yeah. Is
Changes
that
the whole
something
complexion
that
of the
the
game.
well? Is that something the guys upstairs can say? Hey, have another look, or
Like, yeah, they
hey, we
can. Like,
recommend.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's the sort of stuff I
harsh,
don't
but
understand.
uh, I think you talked about the roll forward. Like to me, all this talk about Galvin and coming in and Toby Sexton not being there and then coming back. It's like ultimately what has happened is that they haven't got that roll on. There was a
No.
game 3 weeks ago. It was the Tigers. So the Tigers have had a middle of the range year, but the Dogs couldn't get out of their own end. They were
No.
camped on their 30-metre line for about 4 sets in a row, and that's the problem. Like that, a halfback
Yeah.
or a 5'8's not going to change that. And I think they've just been finally exposed in the back end of the year for not having enough big fellas who could shore up the middle and then roll down the park. It happens.
Yeah.
It's this league, right? If your big fellas don't make yardage, you just don't win.
And it's those second balls too that those really good big guys can pop, and that just changes everything. Then the ruck's loose, everyone's like not in position, and it happened to the. I think I was saying this to you before we went on air. It happened to the Dogs where they committed too many men in. I think it was the second or third Panthers try. There was two players had a guy in a tackle. The third guy rushed in, and he popped the ball as soon as the third guy went in, and there's just a long pass out to the right hand side, and they were short on numbers. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so
And the contrast to that was when the Dogs were attacking. I think it was just after Galvin had scored, and Toto stayed out on his winger, and he trusted his centre to make the tackle, which just
yeah,
doesn't seem to happen. The winger always jams in
no,
when they don't need to. He stayed out, and he just took Connor Tracy straight over the sideline. I think
yeah,
that's what. If you look at the difference also, it's like the connection. Suddenly Panthers have got everyone fit. They're looking so super connected, which wasn't happening at the start of the year. Whereas the Dogs at time defensively looked a little bit all over the place, and
I,
maybe
I think
maybe
the Raiders. Yeah, I think the Raiders had the same problem. You're talking about the wingers rushing in. There was I think it was about three times that the winger was on his own, and he's just had to make a call, and he's rushed in, and they had acres of room outside him. So yeah,
for the Raiders, I just think the previous weeks what's cost them, like just the disappointment. They won the game twice. We talked about it last week on the
yeah,
show. Like
yeah.
I just
Sucked
think
the
about
energy out of him.
100%. They talked about the 20, no, not 20, 1995. That's how old we are. When the Broncos and the Raiders were winning pretty much every comp there for 5 years. They played in a qualifying final, and the thought was they'd go on and meet in the grand final, but the Raiders got knocked out by the Dogs the next week, and then the
Yeah,
Broncos got knocked out by the Dogs the week after. And they're saying that
yeah.
the players said it was the toughest club game they've ever played in, and yeah, it knocked them around. So it will be interesting to see how even the Broncos bounce back this week.
Yeah. Yeah, that dog's run, not to harp on good dogs runs, but that dog's run in '95, I'm pretty sure they also might have played the Saints in that run, was it? Or maybe that was '98, and in the wet, and
Oh no, I think it
they
was the
just got it.
Dragons.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that was a tough
no,
game as well.
98, they absolutely. Oh, Para beat up the Bears, and then the Dogs beat them up the week after. Like
Yeah, that's
physically,
right.
both games were brutal, and no coincidence that we had half the Dogs pack in '98 from the Super League trade. So,
Yeah,
and then and then the Dogs went on a run in both those years
it's
on the
very
back of
very much.
defence.
Yeah, Panthers are like this is what it's looking like for the Panthers. The Dogs built momentum in that '95 run,
Hmm.
and they were knocking off pretty big names. And then, I guess it's a little different. The Panthers are, going to be five-time champions if they can win it.
This like I'm not a Para fan that hates Penrith. I haven't grown up as a local person playing against them and having that rivalry. Like if I'm going
Yeah.
to hate on teams, it's like other teams from when I'm growing up, which is Manly Dogs, which is the rivalry you had in the '80s, and then more
Mm.
recently the Storm. I reckon it'd be such a great story if they won five, especially how many records they're going to have to break. I can remember you and I talking after golf one afternoon when they just played one of the worst games that they'd played in the last 6 years, where it looked
Mm.
like they were complete strangers.
Go
Like
on.
they just couldn't string a pass together. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. And I think anyone who's played team sport with people long enough, sometimes you have one of those seasons and you just all get together and go, where are our heads at? And
Yeah.
suddenly, it can come together when you just remember, you go back to the basics and you start, like you said, start rolling forward. I don't know what the Penrith fans will be able to tell us what the turning point was this year, whether it
They reckon
was
it was
one or two things.
the game out at was it Dubbo or Bathurst or Mudgee maybe, one of those country centres where they got beaten by I can't remember. No, Mudgee was the one where they won, where the Raiders won when they went the length of the field off the drop kick. It was previous to that, and they were just awful. And apparently they had some pretty direct and brutal conversations after that, and since then they've gone on their run. So maybe it's like life, right? Sometimes you've got to have a rock bottom moment to get out the other side. I think, the Raiders definitely the impact of the emotional come down of having thought they'd won it twice. I just think of when you have moments like that in life, it's 1 week's hard to recover. But that would have been they would have had the longest week. It would have been awful.
Yeah, I think that what happens to some players is they've probably thought we've got 2 chances or we've got 3 chances, and then suddenly those chances are going away, and they're starting to think we've had such a great season, we can't lose it. We've dominated. We can't. It would be unthinkable. And then you get in situations where you start to second guess yourself. And that's what it looked like in the Raiders in that last game, is that just nothing was flowing the way it has been all year. And lack of trust, like you said before, is they start to second guess the guy next to them who's maybe making a bad decision. It all rolls.
They also, absolutely. And they also, I noticed that they started doing it the effort was still there, but sometimes it's like just effort for effort's sake, or almost individual effort, instead of going, a couple of guys trying to come out of the line and pull off a hit and all those different things. But like that sort of unravelled a bit from there. And we must say the Sharks were good. Like I've done episodes here on Nico Hines and how, not able to own those big moments. But he was enormous, and we talked about the big fellas, the boppers, like. They just rolled rolled over the top of them. Like in the forwards, they've got a good pack. Plus, they've got really good guys coming in off the bench. Just dominated. They might. I reckon they're a decent chance against the Storm, which is unbelievable given where the Sharks were a couple of months ago.
Yeah, and going back to your point before, when you're talking about effort, sometimes it's effort at the wrong time as well. Like the Panthers seem to know when to rest, when to when to put the effort in all together as a team. And if I can make a comparison to football, is that if half of your team is pressing and the other half isn't, then it's bad news. But if you're all working together as a machine at the right times, it's a beautiful thing. So
and I think because they've done it so many times together and had success, even though there's been new cattle each year, just those main players in the key roles, we'd only have to look at each other. It's like we played football together, and a few of the other guys we played with for years. It was just a glance, and you knew exactly what was on.
Exactly.
And to do it in a high pressure and cutthroat, they have and had success. Like it would just be like putting on a favourite pair of shoes. It's actually incredible.
Yeah.
Now, we're supposed to be talking about the lighter side, but we both said that we couldn't find a great deal. One thing I saw, which I thought was quite funny, was, and again, it's a little bit of an indictment on society where these things go. There was someone did because Aussie sprinter Gout Gout, who's 17 and did an amazing job in the heat to make the semis, but then didn't go through to the final, even though he ran quite well. And someone wrote a headline, out, in somewhere in the UK or something, and he got all this grief about it, and I'm like, that's just funny. Like, since when? Like, since when are we getting offended at that? Seriously.
Yeah, I know and most people realise that the kid's 17 and he'll learn those big moments, and he's probably taken a lot from all those games, and all that. Each of those heats has taught him a lot.
It made me think about your mate Bill Burr, like who regularly is calling people out for getting offended at things.
Yeah. And look, it seems like being offended is a professional thing these days.
Yeah,
It,
100%.
and it's a personal choice. You choose to get offended or you don't choose to get offended. There
Ricky
is
Gervais
no,
said,
yeah, go for it.
sorry, yeah, Ricky Gervais talks about emotions being personal. So,
Yeah,
like, one person says something that's funny, and and I say it to someone else and it's offended. Like, well, that's just a personal preference. It
yeah.
doesn't mean I have to stop saying it because, like, you personally are like it. It's crazy.
And you can use it as well. I think that his coach wouldn't be like keeping some of those clippings and then when he is successful, bringing them out again and said, we use this
In
as
in
fuel. Yeah,
exactly, Queensland Origin style. Um, you said you noticed there was the Aussies got the baton handover, and you said you did a bit of a digging into in some of the history of
yeah.
highbrow
Well,
sprinting teams getting it wrong.
there's plenty on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out. But I just remembered that, I mean, it's a bad mistake putting your foot in the wrong side of the line. I mean, especially where there's a line there. It's not an imaginary line.
And it's bright
Um,
blue.
it's bright blue. Um, but you go back and look at some of the American sprinting teams, the women and the men, who are probably the most professional sprinters on the planet. There's a collection of stuff that they've got wrong. Dropping the
Yeah,
baton. There's one where the girl had it in her hand and the other girl held onto it, and then they both dropped it at the same time. There's one where the American guy was just so focused he leaned into the other lane, clipped the other runner, and then fell over. And then another time, the Americans got clipped, and I think they went on to win gold because they got allowed to rerun a heat by themselves because the other people got disqualified. They made a qualifying time. They then went on to win gold. So it swings and roundabouts, but it can happen to the best of teams.
yeah, and a lot of those US teams, from memory, were like a chance of breaking world records
Oh,
and
100%.
like completely blowing the field away, and it's amazing like that favoritism and that expectation, how that puts more pressure on. Because some of the, I could actually, as you were talking, I was having some flashbacks of some of those dodgy baton changes. It's like they just got it so wrong. And is that
Yeah.
pressure or is that ego or like because they all want to be the best and then bring coming together a team is harder. I don't know.
When you look at the slow mo, they just both look focused, um, just almost too focused. That one's focused on running, the other one's focused on getting it in their hand, and the other one. So it might be just a case of just taking that breath, doing the simple things right, and then maybe they were just too far ahead in their own heads.
Yeah,
It happens.
yeah.
Like the poor
Well,
people who, on a false start, who run halfway around the track before they get told they've got to go back again,
there was a
which I
moment
did
like
see
that.
on one of the highlights.
Wasn't there a moment like that in one of the NRL games in the weekend where they kept playing and it had already been called back? No, it was
Yeah.
the Wallabies. It was the Wallabies game 2 weeks ago. I'm getting my codes mixed up. I just had a
Yeah.
flashback. Me lose brain. That's impossible. What we're talking about, Olympic sports. 25 years since the Sydney Olympics this September.
Uh,
So this very time, like it always, Sydney always seems. I remember one year it hasn't, but pretty much every year since then, it turns on this weather that we're having at the moment, which is like
mm,
somewhere between 23 and 28 every single day. And mate, that was some good days. That 2 weeks.
yeah, it was incredible. I mean, you were there for Cathy's run. So, I mean, it's one of the ones where someone mentions it and the hairs on your neck stand up, like
Yeah,
the, the Socceroos qualifying, or the day we heard we got the Olympics. I remember diving through a
yeah,
bush down at
yeah,
the Opera
yeah, and
House,
then and
hugging a
then
few crazy mates.
yeah, and walking up literally the middle of George Street with all the other
Yep.
people celebrating while guys were walking to work in their suits.
Yeah. High fiving
That was
them.
crazy. Yeah, I think that was probably because we just didn't really expect we'd get it. The expectation was that China would get it, and
Yeah.
as usual the Olympic vote was a stitch up for the highest bidder, and yeah, that was. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That, and again, that was 7 years before the Olympics, maybe. So that's 32 years ago. Oh, little
Wow.
aside remember on the way home, we got the train and we had to get into the junction at Hornsby and then catch one train back, and one of our mates didn't get off the train after that one stop,
Yeah.
and we're like, what happened to him? It had been a long night. We were tired and emotional, shall we say? And then he knocks on my door about 4 hours later after riding the
Three loops.
Sydney 3 loops of
Yeah.
the
Three loops of the Penrith.
Hornsby.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, the things we could get away with back in the day.
And wake up in the rail yards, if I believe, and had to pry his way out of the door.
Again, the things you could get away with back then.
Yeah.
So 25 years, and that Cathy night was unbelievable. I went to a few events, and it was always a great atmosphere out there. Even I think we just went out to the Olympic precinct a couple of nights just to sort of soak up the atmosphere. But there was nothing like that Cathy night where we were right on that 100-meter when they come around the bend and just the crowd surging together, which our old mate Phil Yeomans had said to me, like, athletics crowds are like nothing else.
Yeah.
And it was. And like you said, the amount of people that have claimed they were there on the night. Same with Michael Bevins.
Next thing you'll tell us you're at the Steve Waugh Day.
Actually, I was. I even got the T-shirt to prove it. Oh, mate, we were at a few good ones. Actually, speaking of and long anniversaries and where people said they were there, 20 years since that breaking the World Cup qualification drought, and I saw John O'Lewis and Mark Schwartz being interviewed this week. They were doing a bit of promotion for it, and them saying, like the amount. Apparently there were 180,000 people there, but he goes, but I've met probably about 150,000 that said they were there. I think that's just true for big events.
Yeah. Incredible night. I think that's the most I've seen a crowd have sustained energy for. I don't think. Yeah, it was before we scored. It was just. I think the Uruguayans had a shot right at the start, and it was down our end, and we thought, Recoba, and then he did nothing for the rest of the game, and they did nothing for the rest of the game. But it was an amazing night.
Oh, it just chills the whole way through that. You knew it was going to be different when the Uruguayan national anthem came on and people started booing, and we all looked at each other and shrugged and went, okay, I guess we're doing this. And the Australian crowd, which is usually very polite, but it's like, no, fuck this. We've been burned by going to these different countries at qualification time where they do not give a shit. So it was like, it's our time, and it was. I think that was a real moment where. And even some of the players I've seen in interviews saying that they saw that as a bit of a moment too when they went, on the tunnel before. What was the incident in the tunnel beforehand? Was it Popper? I got one of them in the head, like by the throat or something. Was that right?
I don't know.
Something like that. When they were trying to like talk shit or something before the game, and Popper just said, no, one of the other players was saying, Popper just went, no, not today. We're gonna bully you. What a night that was. 20 years in November.
Yeah. And speaking of, did we fly into Montevideo the day of for that 2006 as opposed to the ones we'd been before? Because I remember players talking about they were in the hotel and they were just banging drums all night outside their hotel. But I have a feeling it was either 2006 or another time they flew in that morning so they didn't have to do it.
I know that they made sure they got all the logistics like 100% because remember they went in the 4 years before they got spat on at the hotel.
Yeah. And physios on the plane and stuff like that.
Oh, on the trip back because we started.
On the trip back.
I did hear some stories about the. No, I actually probably shouldn't say that.
Leave that for our Up Late podcast.
Exactly, the subscription-based one. But let's
Eat
just
the
say
grass at night. That's what it'll be called.
Australia won the jackpot by getting the first leg away, which was very beneficial as it turned out. Let's leave it there. Another anniversary I saw just today, 10 years since what they call the miracle of Brighton, where Japan beat the Springboks in the Rugby World Cup. Apparently rugby in Japan has just got bigger and bigger, but imagine being a Japanese fan for that sort of victory. That's like upset of all upsets.
Yeah. Well, I know a little bit about this because my nephew has his own personal fan over there in Japan.
Wow.
And he actually went and visited him. So they are right into their rugby, and it's like anywhere that's, I guess, affluent and wants to make it. It's sort of like the Dubai in football, or the Saudis in football, Japanese maybe in rugby, pay well, get their own guys in the teams alongside some players who've maybe aged out of where they were, or were just weren't considered because there's a glut of great players like New Zealanders, and I know a lot of those guys go and play in London and stuff like that. But I think Japan's the same way. It's quite lucrative to play there.
And it wouldn't surprise me to see them be a world force down the track. There's a book I've read, it's called A Slight Edge. It talks about the difference between American mentality and Japanese mentality in the car industry in the 70s.
Yeah.
America went bigger and bolder and let's sell a whole lot now. Japan went like, how do we be the best company in 100 years? And they built reliable, strong, funny story. They were going through the horse names. There was the Mitsubishi Colt, and then they were going to have the Stallion, but something got lost in translation. It's the Mitsubishi Stallion. The actual name, Mr. Caggs had a Stallion.
I knew what was coming.
It's all time.
Yeah.
But a true story. But yeah, the Japanese car market just went from strength to strength, whereas the American car industry really dived after that. And you look at football, and
you only have to look at the Argies too.
Yeah.
Look at the Argies. I mean, they're now a force in rugby.
Yeah, 100%. That's just by more and more people getting involved in the game. The J League in the football, their plan that they put together was for the J League to be the best league in the world in 100 years' time. Whereas the A League, we had to go bigger, better, because of the landscape. We've got so much competition, but maybe also because they just got it wrong. So they went hard early, and the A-League was amazing in those first few years, like sold-out crowds for the first weekend, big names coming out. But now look where we are, right? They didn't plan for long-term, and now it's like I went to a game this year, because it was free tickets. There would have been 7,000 people there, and there's no soul to it. So, I wouldn't be surprised if the Japanese, with their long-term planning, that they do become a force in the world of rugby.
Yeah.
Personal fan. That's interesting. That's not creepy at all that he went to visit him?
No, I think he's just a genuine fan, and they actually went and had dinner, I think, at his place with him and his wife. So he's like not like a lone gunman or anything like that. He's just a rugby fan, and
the local boys here at the mighty Warringah Tigers, they do like, they have a swap with Japan where the young team goes over there and vice versa, and they were saying that the nights out they had with the Japanese dads of those rugby squads were off the charts. So the rumours are true. They do like a good time and a karaoke.
Yeah, 100%. And if you're like going to feed my nephew, who's 6'5" and 130 kilos, that's a lot of fish. A lot of fish.
More fugu.
Yeah, that's right. More fugu.
Fantastic. You've taken the time to listen to this whole episode. Now it's time to take action. Commit to one thing you've learned today and make it happen. And to avoid any obstructions, join the Sport is Life movement by clicking on the link in the show notes.